Oops, had the wrong screen on then. But anyway, here we are. This is a random drop-in because I was about to put up a Q&A post to say if anyone's got any questions they need to know about OGR going into the hectic week of the start and then the start and so on, I can answer all those questions. And then I remembered, oh, jeepers, I never answered the questions last time. I posted that on the 8th of December, which was unbelievable. I thought it was a few weeks ago, nearly a month ago, and never answered them. So I'm going to answer them now. So there were some interesting ones there. We got very busy, obviously, with boats coming in and hectic. And I kept thinking, oh, I'll get back and do those questions when I can. Then Christmas, New Year comes up and you want to just phase out and forget about it. I thought, I could do it anytime. It's a bit of fun when I answer questions. A lot of people get bored, all that sort of rhubarb, but I never did. And then that tweaked my memory. So I thought I'd better do it right now. I'll be in trouble. So I probably even am already. And one of the questions said, I hope you can give us the answers before the new year. Well, I did. Oops, sorry. So there's about 16 or so questions here, so it shouldn't take too long. And some of them are quite interesting. Anyway, one from John Sharp that was transferred across. How are they navigating in addition to DR and Astro? Well, they're not. The entrants are just using Astro navigation and dead reckoning when they can't get a fix. So that's pretty much all there is to it. And we inspect all their logs when they come in. I've got to say the navigational logs are actually quite tidy, unlike the Golden Globe race. The solo sailors, when some of their logs are just nuts, there's just bits of paper everywhere, blah, blah, blah. But in the OGR, you've got a dedicated navigator, and it's you can see they take pride in their work. It's very organised, and it'll become a historical document and a lot of fun for them when they look back in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it's quite good looking at their navigation logs and checking bits and pieces. So that's kind of fun. Translators seems to be very certain of their position, sailing straight line to the Cape, although it seems to have been quite cloudy. No, they're just sailing straight line, sailing. And that's what Simon Kerwin did in the Golden Globe race. It can actually increase your speed dramatically, because if you're not doing this and you're going like that, then it's the same speed, shorter distance, faster overall time. And that's something that they sail to. Some of the others will actually just crack off and sail the weather and sail this way for a while and then sail that way for a while to keep the boat comfortable. But translated to racing, they'll trim the sails and try and hold the course in relation to the weather forecast they get as well. Okay, are there any rake on beacons left? I doubt it. No one's using them anyway on board. Is DR the usual tracking of planned course and average observed speed, or is there more sophisticated DR? No, the DR just simply comes from people writing up the log maybe every hour with course and distance, and distance is a factor of speed, so just course and distance is all you really need for DR, but they write up the log regularly with bits and pieces, and then they work that back. To come up with their assumed position. So that's pretty straightforward. John Russell, hi, Don. Will the next OGR also be rooted in 1973, or will it be sailing like it's 1977? Thanks for everything. This race is brilliant. Interesting point. I see what you're getting at, because if we assume that the OGR will be here in 50 years, are we still going to be sailing like 1973 in 50 years' time, which is 100 years from the start? It might be hard with the boats and this, that, and the other, but that's not our problem. So yes, for the next OGR in 2027 will be celebration of those first Whitbread races. We are putting an extra one on for the qualification of the boats. So boats in flyer class can come from any of the 4 editions from 1973 up to 1985. Currently in this edition, it was only the first 3 Whitbreads that we allowed them in. So that's a little bit of a change. John Pito, do the boats talk smack with each other on their daily radio skids? American slang means teasing each other. Yeah, they certainly are. Absolutely convinced of that. I don't know all the intimate details of the communications on the radio between them, but it's a lot of fun. It's a whole new experience for most of them. They in their other sailing career before this, they're using satellite phones, and you don't get that group bonding happening. And it may be a little bit more competitive, so they don't, and there's shorter distance, so the weather is all done on, by satellite and routing programs, so they don't need to talk to each other about the weather because they get their own. So it really does make a completely different feel to sailing in the OGR, and it's something they're all talking about and they're all loving it a lot. So it's a pretty interesting bonding situation. They all become mates between boats, Okay. When will the penalties be applied due to the flag issues at the start in Cape Town? Oh, they're already applied. They're fines. So we had boats fined at the start, and it cost them cost them €500 for no lee cloths and €500 for no flags. And they were all warned again at sea. We sent them messages. Some arrived here without the same thing. They were all fined again. And now, leaving here, the fines have been increased to $750, €750 for flags and €750 for lee cloths. And it's something that, they have no reason to complain. We give it to them in writing. We give it to them in briefing. So wear it. We don't really have any major partners at the moment, except us, sort of underwriting the event. But we need that in the branding to show future sponsors that we're serious about those sponsors' branding. Okay, so that's why it's become a bit of an issue, because no one cared, Or I shouldn't say that. Some of the entrants were a bit reckless and just sort of too busy, and so they didn't do it, and lots of little reasons, and we understand that, but we're trying to get them into the swing of things. So I'm sure you'll see lots of flags and lots of lee cloths and other bits and pieces in the restart here from Auckland. Okay, and I think in the past, a flag issue start. I think you said in the past it was a 7-hour penalty and the number of boats would get them. No, it was purely a financial penalty for the lack of flags and banners. John, again, hope time to get these questions answered before New Year's Day. That was a joke back then, but it turned out to be well placed. So sorry about that. Usually I get them done within 3 or 4 days, and I'll try and do the same, because I'll put another lot of questions up tomorrow, Friday, and try and answer those ones maybe over the weekend or whatever. John, would you mind giving us a backstory on how you got interested in Citran and supporting research into motor neurone disease? It's an interesting one. I did an expedition in 2010 called Talisker Bounty Boat. It was a recreation of the mutiny on the Bounty, and British and some others will know about that, where the crew were ejected. William Bligh was ejected from the Bounty by Fletcher Christian, and him and 18 of his men got in a little boat and thought they'd perish, but they actually sailed 4,000 miles across the Pacific with basically nothing to get to Kupang, which was in West Timor these days. And they survived, and then they eventually went looking for the mutineers and caught some and blah, blah, blah. So we redid the same thing in an open whale boat, a 25-foot open whale boat, me and 3 others with virtually the same stuff they had, which was nothing. No toilet paper, no nothing, no charts. We just went, and I lost 18 kilos. We left with 2 weeks worth of water. It was 48 days. We did pretty much the same time. They beat us into Kupang by about 6 hours, if I remember rightly. And it was a hell of an expedition. Anyway, during the course of setting that up, a guy by the name of Stuart, contacted us and said, "Hey, have you heard about Citran?" This was when we were in Hobart, and he introduced us to Citran, and it became quite an amazing relationship. And we ended up shipping the boat to England and doing a lot of different things there with Citran. And we were working with various people and raised quite a bit of money. It was quite substantial at the time. And when I say that, it wasn't us raising the money. We were publicising the efforts to raise the money, and it was kind of good. And it is really a very important thing, because we're all getting older. The population around the world is getting older, and then more and more affected by Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and things like that. But motor neurone affects many people that aren't getting old. It's just something to do with sports, and you can read all about it. Or no, high achievers and things like that, not just sports. And Citran is a world leader in research. It's a research institute, and they're coming up with some very interesting programs to try and tackle motor neurone disease primarily, but then it goes on to all the other neurological bits and pieces. So it really started with Bounty Boat, and we try to publicise it as much, but I get so bloody busy sometimes. I keep forgetting to push it, and I should push it more. All the boats have got Citran teddy bears on board, and we'll try and do something with those at the end of the day as well. So it's a very worthwhile program as well. And so ask a sailmate to make a couple of OGR flags. Ask a sailmaker to make a couple of OGR flags. That might be referring to, we actually get, we've got plenty of OGR flags here, and we give them a few, but they sometimes forget. Some of them don't survive the big winds, and we don't expect them to go up, obviously, if they're coming in and it's screaming 50 knots or something. But we got plenty of replacements. Hi, Don. First of all, I'd like to send sincere gratitude. Thanks. Good, glad you're enjoying it. Have a few questions, hoping you could clarify. Apologies, this one is not about the OGR. Regarding the GGR, remember you mentioned a plan to compile a roundup of a survey from entrants, you know what worked, what didn't, and so on. We haven't actually done that yet because we've been so busy with the OGR, but we probably will. Once the OGR is over, we've got a few plans there, and I'll still send it to the entrants and get it happening. And when we do, it'll be publicised quite well on social media and on the website and so on. But we never really got round to that. 2, during the visit to MDL, I mentioned the kind of significant issues with MDL, blah, blah, blah. Provide more details about these challenges. No, any business relationship has challenges, and MDL were really good. We got berthing and bits and pieces, and it was over a period of time. Some things didn't go so well, other things did, so it balances out at the end of the day. But we'll make some announcements about that in the days ahead. There have been number 3, there's been several complaints about access management on the marina. Are there any plans to address these issues in the upcoming Southampton race? You probably mean the finish. That was the marina berths themselves are only rated to so many people. So MDL decided they would restrict the number of people on departure. So we couldn't put a lot of people down there. Now all of those marina pens have been removed. They've been scrapped, and they've got all new marina pens coming back into that spot. The rest of it, getting on and off the marinas during the course of the time we were there, was a bit about security and managing. MDL wanted to manage that very closely, so that was their responsibility and their right, because it was their marina. So we didn't have much say on that. And next question, I'm curious about the navigational strategy used in the GGR and OGR with the no-go zones and marked block areas. Was in the OGR the waypoint system used? What's the reasoning behind that? Well, with the GGR in the past, we've used a block-out zone because it was simple and it was meant to be to keep them well away. We didn't want them to dip down between anything. We may review that for 26, but let's wait and see. For OGR, they're a lot faster boats, and a lot better managed with full crews, and they're a lot more powerful, and they have the ability to dodge weather systems quite effectively if they know they're coming. So the idea of the waypoints is pretty simple. With that sort of ability and speed, they could dip down under something if they wanted to and miss pressure systems or get an advantage from it. So it was better than having a block route. And also, because they're faster and there's a bigger fleet to assist, very reliable and things like that, we decided to make waypoints, and that's effectively what happened. But one boat did miss it. Did miss a waypoint and has been penalised accordingly. Okay, thanks for that. Sierra, hi Don. Questions from a non-sailor from Portsmouth. Hope you're watching or get to see this. You've probably given up on me giving you an answer. Is there more to helming than steering in the right direction? Absolutely. When you're helming, when you're steering on the wheel, it's not like driving a car where you're just on a flat road. You're in the sea, and so if you've got a big quartering sea coming behind you, just the wave action will grab the boat and it'll tend to push it around in different directions. Okay, so you'll be steering, and the wave picks the boat up, and the whole boat wants to go that way, so you have to counter steer. Okay, and certainly you can react to the movement of the boat once it starts to go. So whoa, we're going this way, I better move the wheel that way. But when you get the feel for it, and you'll actually feel this, get going, you do it subconsciously. You can, the moment you start to feel the boat lift or whatever, this is just one sort of example, you know what's going to happen. When it's starting to lift and it's on the quarter, the boat's going to heel over a bit and it's going to want to screw up to starboard. So you can actually apply the helm before the boat even starts to go in that direction, right, forced by the wave, which counteracts the pressure of the wave and keeps the boat going in a straight line. Okay, and that's where you get to be a good helmsman. That's just in terms of the hydrodynamics and the boat, the hull. Okay, the next thing is that if you're looking at the sails and you're trimming your sails regularly, you have little telltales on the sails, and you can, you're helming and you're steering by the telltales. You know whether you've gone up too high or you need to go down, and so on. So you can be looking at your trimming of the sails, deciding where you want to steer the boat rather than just a compass course, as well as taking into account the boat lifting with the waves and all that sort of stuff. And then finally, you've got to look at where the navigator wants you to go. So it's quite an involved process. And when you start doing that, when you get on the helm, it seems very mechanical, and people stare at the compass and just do this, blah, blah, blah. But after you get more and more experience, it all just becomes a fluid motion, and all these things happen naturally. And you'll see in some of the videos, the guys and girls are steering, they just do it naturally, just naturally as you can. But if you want to perform really well in short course racing, it's really precise what you want to do. Ocean voyaging, like passage racing, when you're out there for weeks and weeks and weeks, may not be as intense, but it's still very important. And I see, talking to some of the crews, some of them are trimming all the time. They're trimming their sails regularly, they're helming really tight, and they're the ones that are actually way up front. Translator's one of those. Victoria's got the crew all hyped up and cranked up, and they're actually steering what I call aggressively, as if they're racing all the time. Some of the others are pretty relaxed, like Explorer might be baking a cake or doing something high tech, and maybe not driving as hard as they could, but they're having fun. And so you can see there, you've got different scales and different reasons to be doing the OGR. Everyone's in it for something, for their own personal reasons. But when you're helming, yes, there's more to it than just steering a car. I see in the videos they're constantly moving the wheel. That's right. Can the helmsman create a smoother ride through the steering? Absolutely. I hope you get time to film the boat tours. Yeah, we're going to start them. Ada's going to do some in French, and I'll be doing some in English in the next day or so. Okay, Alf, hi. Great race so far. Do you ever get time to go for a sail yourself? Not really. When was the last time you went for a proper multi-day sail? Best of luck for the Auckland Rivals. I hardly ever sail unless I'm going sailing, right? I don't do a lot of day sailing, things like that. But the last sail I had was of any consequence was 2 years ago, when I took my little mini Tracker, 19-foot plywood boat, or a 5.8 metre boat, raced it across the Atlantic in the Globe 580 Transat. And the current one, the next one, was 2 years later, which was just finished now in Antigua. And a guy by the name of Urton Bescardis was sailing my boat, Tracker. He went across and he won the seniors division, just like I did back then. They took a lot longer than me. I took 28 days. They took about 34, I think, because they had a lot less wind. So usually when I go sailing, it's like gearing up for something and go. And that's just the stage of life that I'm at. I'm retired. I've been retired since the year 2000 and very busy. so yeah, I don't go out sailing on Saturday. No, occasionally we'll go out in the boat and do something, but not of any real serious consequence. But eventually, if I'm lucky, I'll get Explorer back, and then we can have some fun as well. I think we'll take it down to Lanzarote and maybe base it down there, and because we get it easy to fly in and out of there, because I've still got a few things to do after the OGR. Okay. Thanks, Alf. Max, question regarding flag etiquette, if applicable. Are competitors required to fly class, national, or racing ensigns or pennants when racing? I don't have one here. But yes, there is a very distinct and strict flag protocol. And you can be sure that all the boats will probably abide by that for the start here in Auckland. First thing is they've got to fly the Globe Yacht Club burgee off the backstay or off the masthead of the mizzen. Okay, that's the racing burgee. It's the Globe Yacht Club. The next, they have to fly their national ensign off the back of the boat in a flagstaff. So you'll see every boat should have a national flag ensign off the transom, on a staff. Then they have to fly the McIntyre Adventure and the Auckland flag down low on the cat shrouds. When they're motoring on the marina and when they motor out to the start, you'll see a whole range of our supporters' flags on their forestay. Then after that, once they stop motoring, they pull those flags off the forestay, and then they just have the two lower flags, the McIntyre Adventure and the Auckland flag, down low. And then they've got to have their cockpit lee cloth. So yeah, there is protocol. So when they're about to cross the finish line in Punta Leste, they have to fly the two flags down low again. And one will be McIntyre Adventure, and the other will be Punta del Este flag there. And then once they start motoring, after they cross the finish line, you've got the supporter flag up the forestay. They've got to fly their national anthem, national ensign on the back, and have the cockpit lee cloths. They also have to fit cockpit lee cloths 2 hours before they sight Cape Horn, and they can't take them down until they're approximately 10 miles to the east of Cape Horn. So there's a few things might happen there. Anyway. That's Ensign's excellent racing coverage so far. Thanks for that. Richard, what finally became of Godspeed? Is the boat stuck in Cape Town? Are they sailing back to the USA? I think it might still be in Cape Town, organising a crew. Had a quick message from Taylor the other day. He's busy organising things and so on. So I'm not quite sure. I can't tell you that, but I think it may still be in Cape Town. But the plan is to get it back to America or up to certainly up north in the North Atlantic. Hi, Margaret. What are the Auckland festivities? Well, right now, the next one, we've got all the usual things. Festivities? No. Festivities is the captain's dinner, which is a closed dinner for VIPs and just the captains and their partners for at the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. Then we have a Whitbread reunion, which is just for Whitbread veterans in the office down there, and that's on the 11th, I think it is. And then we have the prize giving farewell event at the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron again, which I think is on the 12th. So there's a few things happening there going forward. Okay, Don, did the catch rig on the first 3 boats help them in this leg for following winds? Cheers, Warren. Oh, you got a Whitbread. You must be a vet. Ooh, you got a Whitbread hat. That's cool. Did it help them? Hard to say. I think it's a nature of, there's some real advantages for a catch rig, of course. You don't see them on, hot racing boats these days, but for ocean voyaging, they've got quite a few different advantages. One of them, when you're in the Southern Ocean, you get rid of the mism, and then the center of effort is forward. The mast has actually gone forward a bit, only a fraction, but it means the sails are pulling from the front because it's usually on the quarters. The wind is either behind or on the port or starboard quarter. So that helps. And then in the Atlantic legs, you can put up a lot of big reaching sails. You watch Galliana, they put everything up, bloopers up, mizzen staysail, the normal kites, bits and pieces. So there are some advantages, but I don't know whether you'd call it, if you've got a crack crew like Juicy on Spirit of Helsinki, if they've got a crack crew, you've got a very big, powerful rig, great big sails, really powerful boat, and that's quick. So I don't think I'd go so far as to say there's a huge, big advantage. They certainly look good, and dealing with smaller sails can help you in the Southern Ocean as well. And at times, in certain sailing configurations and wind direction, yes, a catch rig is okay. It can have some advantages, but I don't know whether it helped them or not. A bit hard to say. Jen, what does an underwriter do? Oh, well, we sit here and talk and answer questions on thing. What an underwriter does is basically, I've been very fortunate in my life that everything I've said I would do, I basically have done, in terms of adventures and expeditions and events. And they've never been easy. And quite often some people will want to do things and they don't do it for various reasons. But once I say we're going to do something, I have to do it, and I will do it. And sometimes it costs us a lot of money to do that. And that's part of what we do. So an underwriter guarantees that an event will take place. And because no one actually understands really who we are, what we do, or where we get things from, you always have a rumour mongering going on, and it's really quite interesting. When we started the first Golden Globe race, there were many people that said that the Golden Globe race would never happen, and then there was many that said even literally weeks before the start, it's never going to happen. And we made that happen with the support of Les Sables d'Olonne, and we invested a hell of a lot of money in that first Golden Globe race. So we basically make sure it goes, and when there's a shortfall in the funding, we come up with the money. And then in 2022, we did the same. And again, Les Sables d'Olonne were massive supporters of that. But we still didn't have what I call a title partner. There was no naming partner for the race. And so with the Ocean Globe race, it's a huge gamble. But once I committed to make sure it's happening, or Jane and I committed to make sure it happens, we make sure it happens regardless of what the finances are. And the rumour mongering still continues, but we're here and we will be there at the finish. And it's going to be something that everyone will look back with a lot of pride. Our team, everyone involved, we're creating something from nothing, and we're enjoying it. Yes, we have challenges, and I have to play good cop, bad cop sometimes. Some of the event entrants hate me with a passion because we're running the show, and we have to be true to the ethos and the concept of the race. And when they realise, oh yeah, that was there, but I didn't read it, or oh yeah, well, I know it was in the rules, but I don't like it. And I said, well, bad luck. That's how it works. So that's what the underwriter does. It keeps the underwriter keeps the event going. And as the organizer, I have a very clear vision of what we want to achieve. And we'll get to the end of the race, and then we'll review everything and see how it went. But so far, so good. The majority of the entrants are having absolute ball. So we're happy, and we make it happen. That's how it works. And we have a lot of support for that. So even though we don't have sponsors, we've got some great volunteers in every port, and we really need them, and we value them greatly. And we've got a group of partners who support us in various ways. No title partner, but, Plastimo have been with us for forever, and Boat Shed and Zeke come in and do some things, and Rolly Tasker Sales, they're helping us on bits and pieces. So all is good. Okay. Last question, Joanne. Is there a penalty for not sending the text once a day? There is now, because some of the entrants weren't paying as much attention to it as they should do. We knew they're okay, but it is a very important safety issue. So every time an entrant forgets the mandatory one text per day, it'll cost them €50. Money talks, So I'm hoping they all remember now, because it is a safety issue. It's our first trigger to see that everything's okay on board. And we have a set process in our crisis management planning, which is triggered from that. If we don't hear them for a while, we check to see if the buddies have heard them on the radio. And if they haven't, even though we've got the tracker going, we still need to send them messages and try to get them to respond. And so it goes. But generally, they're pretty good. But now you might see an increase in the number of boats that are sending a text. However, they can send just all okay, or they can tell you what's going on board. That's their prerogative, as long as we get a message. Okay, so that's about it. I'll just check the few comments here. Where do we post questions to be answered on these lives, please? Okay, we're just still sticking with Facebook at the moment, and I'll be putting one up tomorrow. You'll see a big question mark, and then usually an OGR logo. You'll see those two things, and when you see that, you put the questions in the comments, and I can give you the answers, usually very quickly. Excuse me. But this one absolutely breaks all-time records. It's crazy. Usually I get embarrassed when it takes a week or more. But anyway, so thanks, Nigel. Thanks a lot, Jane. We'll be able to buy merchandise in the UK finish. Maybe a little bit. Anyway, we're going to make an announcement about the finish in the next few days, so keep an eye on that. But yeah, there will be merchandise there. We just got to work out where we actually and how we actually sell it. The only way, one of the biggest helps here is Christine sitting in the container. She sits in the container all day just to help us sell T-shirts and hats. So it's not a commercial operation, I got to tell you, but she's fantastic. So, and we had some good help in Southampton for the start from volunteers there, and we'll try and do something at the finish. Craig, are there any make style of the yacht that aren't allowed to enter, even if they are right length? No, it's not just the length. There's plenty that aren't allowed to enter, and there's only a few that can enter. So you can read all about it on the website, but just briefly, we have Adventure class and Sayula class, which are production yachts. They have to be production boats designed before 1988. Okay, and then they have the length classification. But more importantly, we use Nauta Swan, who have nothing to do with the OGR, by the way. They're not our partners and all the rest of it. We use a Nauta Swan as a benchmark boat. So if you wanted to have a production boat designed before 1988 that was sort of 53 feet long, which fits in adventure class, the parameters of displacement, sail area, length, and so on has to fall within about 20% of what an equivalent Nautilus Swan would be. So if a Swan 53 weighed 23 tons, okay, and it had a certain sail area and all this sort of stuff, the boats that we approve have to be within 20% of those parameters, just to keep them all heavy displacement, really solid, well-found boats. And even then, we have the right to, sort of say, no, not good enough, if we think that there's something not quite right. But that's not happening. There's quite a few different designs that qualify. And also, we have a door there that we can open the door to any type of boat if we want. If it's got historical significance, or it has some other relevance to the early Whitbreads or the OGR. So you don't have to exclusively stick to the classifications that's shown in the notice of race. We can let anyone in if we want to, if there's some other connection. And in flyer class, they have to be entered previously in any of the first 4 Whitbread races. Now that's for 27. Okay, for this edition, it was the first 3 Whitbreads. So there's a few different things there. Anyway, that's it. So thanks for listening in, and we will post another Q&A opportunity tomorrow sometime. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks a lot. I'll see you later.